A priest had just arrived in heaven. He was being taken to his eternal dwelling. It was only a small shack, kind of humble. And the priest couldn't help himself. He couldn't hide his disappointment. Down the street, he saw a taxi driver being shown a lovely estate with gardens and pools, this big, beautiful place. And so the priest said to St. Peter, I don't understand. My whole life I lived serving God with everything I had, and this is all I get? While that cab driver, he gets a mansion. Well, St. Peter looked at him and said, well, it's quite simple. When you preached, people fell asleep. When he drove, people prayed like crazy. There will be a temptation in this homily for some of you to fall asleep. Oh no, does that mean I don't get my mansion in heaven? Oh man, okay. Now, why would you fall asleep? Because today we give our annual talk on tithing and stewardship. I don't know why it is, but when Catholics hear the word tithing, it's like something happens. It's like, whoa, wait, did Father just say tithing? Ooh, forget it. I'm going to take a nap, man. Wake me up, it's time for the collections. You see, for some priests, this is a difficult topic to cover because they want to be listened to. They don't want the message to be tuned out. So we should not be reluctant to talk about money. It's an essential part of our spiritual lives. And to be honest, the greatest negative thing about stewardship and tithing, it's too easy. And I'm serious. People won't believe that it will provide for all of the temporal needs that we have. Tithing is easy to do, it's easy to share, and you know something? It's actually quite easy to preach about. Now, it takes a commitment to give of oneself, but basically what it comes down to is your relationship with God. And part of that relationship, of course, concerns your wallet. Now, everything depends on God. Everything. We know that. We are simply recipients. Everything good we have, everything, including our ability to make money, comes from Him. And so God should get the 10%. Why? Because it's scriptural to not give God the scraps, the leftovers, but the first fruits, to thank Him for what He's done for us. But just as important, sacrificial giving comes out of a duty to love. See, when people are totally in love with Jesus and His church, when they know that God has been so good to them, well, they start to give back, to express that gratitude. And once hearts and minds are open, and once the giving starts, it's easy to give the 10%. You see, stewardship is really just an inner attitude. It comes from the heart, where one can recognize that everything is that gift from God. But here's something that many of you not only know, many of you can actually teach this. The more generous we become, the more generous we want to be, because the more we'll be able to do so because of the generosity of God. You've heard this before many times, hopefully. You cannot outgive God. If you're generous, you better watch out. He's going to be incredibly generous to you. But before we talk about some of the apprehension and complaints about tithing, I first of all want to publicly thank those of you who do tithe here in the parish. Tithing, of course, basically means you take 10% of your income, giving 5% to the parish, 5% to a charity of your choice. But there's actually those of you who give 10% or even more of your income entirely to the parish. Thank you. And may God truly bless you and your families enormously, and He, of course, will, for helping us literally to keep the lights on and the doors open. But here's something that there's just no getting around, because study after study all over the country at all points of the same thing, and we here in this parish, we're in the same boat. We're not any different. 25% of our parishioners contribute to 75% of the income, the operating expenses. So only a quarter of any parish contributes to 3/4 of the money coming in, which means 75% of the parish gives little or nothing. And that being the case, when you figure that in, Catholics, out of all the denominations, we give the least. When you average it all out, we only give 1% of our income. Now, can you imagine the great things we can get done here if we all contributed 10%? It'd be unbelievable. Because we have all sorts of outreaches and ministries and all kinds of wonderful things planned and lined up. We're unable to get those things started because we just simply don't have the money. And as you know, here especially, we are in great need of updating and remodeling things like the bathrooms and the kitchen and so forth. So that means we have to have funds coming in beyond what it takes to pay the bills. But now one of the problems that Catholics bring up is that they will say, well, if there's a need, then maybe I'll contribute. I just told you a couple of our needs here, but for any parish, especially one like ours, it's so diverse. And also the facilities here, it's over 60 years old. There's always going to be needs. Now the thing is, some people will come up to us priests and say, well, Father, you don't know what it's like to be behind on your bills. You don't know what it's like. The kids, man, they got new shoes every 2 months, man. They go through them like that. Yeah, I do know what that's like. They're, number one, my kids too, okay? I have my own bills to pay. But you think the electric company lets us turn these lights on for free? I don't think so. In fact, the phone company charges us double than they charge you because we're a business, okay? We have bills. And so this is not my church, you guys are just here kind of sharing it. It's our church. We're all in this together. But another problem is that when you talk to people about money and giving 10%, some are emotionally going to resist. Why is that? Because people tend to think that that 10% seems huge at first. No way, I can't do that. But we have to flip over our attitudes. Let's say you go out and make $1,000 next week, or maybe you get some kind of rebate or whatever, get this $1,000 check you weren't expecting. Wow, that's awesome, man. But then you start to squirm. You take out your check. That doggone fall DePalma, man, I got to give $100 to the church, man. I can't believe this, man, all right? Well, what are you missing? What are you worried about when you're kissing goodbye, that $100? You're keeping 900. You're giving away 10, you're keeping 90. Now, I just got through saying like 3 or 4 times, right? Everything belongs to God, right? But he still lets us keep 90%. What part of that is a bad deal? Before I became a priest, I used to work at the phone company, a couple miles right down there in downtown Albuquerque. I used to faithfully tithe. To tell you the truth, I never missed that 10%. Never missed it. Many people who give from a grateful heart say the same thing. They don't miss the money. And for myself, in the 17 years I worked there at the phone company, I was laid off twice and put on a list to be laid off 7 more times. So 9 times in 7 years I was on the layoff list. But God always came through for me. I never had a want. I was always able to find work quickly. In fact, even as a priest, I still tithe. Even though we don't make a ton of money, I still do. In fact, in preparation for this homily, I was kind of adding things up, and it was actually kind of surprising. It was kind of an interesting thing. And now I'm not saying this at all to show off. I am saying this to show you my commitment to you and to this parish. In my 2.5 years as your pastor, I have given out of my pocket $19,000 to the various needs here in this parish. I only make 24. I've given 19. Now let me ask you a question. Does it look like I'm starving? I don't think so. God takes pretty good care of me. He'll take the same good care with you. But see, even if you do miss the 10%, even if you're shedding tears, you're writing that check, oh man, I was going to have frappuccinos all week, man, I can't believe this, there it goes. It's supposed to hurt because it's called sacrificial giving. That's a good thing. You see, when it's not easy to give, that's when the blessings to be received are the greatest. You see, we as priests cheat you out of blessings if we don't preach about tithing. But here, of course, is another complaint. Father, I can't even pay my own bills now. How can I afford to give 10%? Because things get better. Things get better when you tithe. Because God provides. He always, always blesses a grateful heart. But not only that, when we start to give, our tastes change. Our desires change. Because our focus is now on God and on His will in our lives. And so we have to recognize where the true treasure in our lives is. What do we give the most attention and time to? Are we truly focused on God? Here's another complaint, though. Well, Father, we're just a poor parish. Just get used to it. Just deal with it. We're just poor. Every parish has a superabundance of gifts. Every parish, including ours. God is not stingy with His people. There is enough in time, talent, and yes, even in treasure. In fact, when you get right down to it, you can't afford not to tithe. So start somewhere, with an amount, maybe more than you're giving now, but then work up to the 10% if that's what it takes. And some of you can begin right away. But remember, tithing doesn't put your finances all crazy. Tithing puts your finances actually under control. I know that firsthand. But here's another complaint. Well, Father, what if the others don't do it? And I'm the only one who has to pay for the whole parish here, okay? What if I'm part of that 25%? Well, the ones who don't give, they're the ones who are missing out. But you see, it's not about everybody else, it's between you and God. What's God saying to you? Here's another one. Well, what about the elderly and the sick, those on fixed income? Can't expect them to give, can we? Let me ask you this. Do we or do we not want everyone in our parish to receive blessings from God? Do we? See, we actually owe it to the elderly, the sick, the poor, to preach about tithing so they too can discover the great peace in their lives from the generosity of God's love. To be honest with you, I know this firsthand. You know who the best people in the church are who tithe? The poor, the elderly, and the sick. They're the best. All people need to hear this message, even the kids. Kids have a little babysitting job, make a little bit of money, we'll teach them to tithe too. So they too can grow up knowing that God will bless them for their generosity. It all starts with what? The attitude. God is first. That makes all the difference. And this all makes our decisions easier. Because whether our decisions are moral, emotional, or rational, things that we have to make, the emphasis is on God and not on material things. It's much more clear to see the movement of the Holy Spirit. So we as a parish can keep on tithing. You know what else we can keep on doing? We can keep on dreaming. We can keep on hoping. Keep loving. Keep giving. Keep being motivated. Keep forgiving. And keep praying to the greater glory of God.